Well, I mentioned before, I try to keep one of these Lee loaders for all the calibers that I have. You know, it's nice if you can, but some of them are hard to find. But the one I didn't have one for was for this 32 Special. And I happened to hear from 303 Canadiana that he had an extra one. So he gave me that, which is nice to have because, like I say, some of that stuff just really hard to find. And it's hard to beat them for this kind of a situation where you can take the gun and the loader right with you to the range and putz around, you know, trying different loads and stuff. So I want to thank him for that. That is nice to have because, you know, I've looked on eBay and I don't see him, but you know, they used to make like 110 different calibers and they've got it down to, I think it's like 30 now, which is unfortunate because they work very well. But there's some other things about these. Well, like for instance, one thing now, the one that he had, the spare, because he's got one for his too, but the spare one was missing the decapping pin. And I should mention to anybody, if you're missing those, you can buy from Lee the decapper separately. You know, you get the base and the pin. What they're really made for is for removing crimped in military primers. But it's the same one that's used in the Lee loader sets. So if you're missing that piece, you know, that's easy enough to get, and they aren't very expensive, but they're handy to have if you ever run. I know I used one on, I had some Serbian hot shot ammo for the Mosin that had crimped in primers. So it's good to have them on hand anyway, because they seem to take a beating. And another thing, you know, Lee, their directions have changed over the years, but a lot of times they don't recommend these for use in a lever gun or in an automatic, I think too. They don't recommend them. But I've never tried them in an automatic. But in a lever gun, I've used them a long time with my 45-70. You know, the whole trick is to get a good crimp. And if you're using the right bullet that has got a crimping groove in it, they work perfectly fine. Now, there's been some debate about, you know, I've been carrying on conversations with people on shooting cast in a 30-30, and I've never done it, but people do. The advantage of a 32 Special is it's got that slow rifling. It's made for cast bullets. And my theory is, you know, a 32 Special can shoot these jacketed bullets very well, better than what a 30-30 can shoot the cast. So, given a choice, I would go with the 32 Special. I really like, you know, it's a nice gun. And somebody asked about for deer hunting, and they're perfectly adequate, more than adequate for deer hunting. You know, they're an excellent gun. I haven't shot anything with the cast bullets. You know, these are the RCBS, and like I say, they've got a definite crimping groove in them. But I have used the jacketed bullets, and they work perfectly fine. You know, because they're very similar to a 30-30. But these are a little hard to find. These are the Spear, and I think Spear is probably the only company making them now. But it's nice to have one of these, you know, because I do like to have them on hand. But I'm sure there's, you know, like I've said, there's different ways. I use them a little differently than what some of the directions show. For one thing, when I prime, I don't prime in the tube. I prime just out in the open. And that way you can tell When you're getting the primer centered and seated in there, a lot of them, you put this on and bang, and so you're pulling it out of the sizer and onto the primer right in one shot. I do it in two separate stages. It just works better because then the primer doesn't have a chance to jump out of place. And like I said, I've done thousands of these, and I've never had a primer go off. Though I hear, people having primers go off, but it's never happened for me. Though one other thing he was missing out of the set was the dipper, but I've got so many of these dippers laying around from all the various lead die sets, it wasn't hard to match up the right one. And I have to say, most of my Lee sets, I don't actually have the original dipper anyway, because I'm usually using different powders. You try things and you finally sort it out, get the one you want. This CBS bullet is a good bullet, but it's tight, and like I say, if they're real tight, then I'll put the bullet in first, but this one does go down in there. But I think partly because of the gas check fits really snug. Where I run into a problem is where I'm coming out. But that's where the Swiss Army knife works. It actually almost crimps it in the die. But the idea for crimping with these then is you turn this piece upside down, and it'll do the crimping. And it works perfectly fine if you have a bullet that is set up for that. Because like I say, I did them in a 4570 for many years. I never had a problem with them. But I'm trying a different powder. Tried that SR 4759. In these, I've normally been shooting at 4064, but being as this is a carbine, I'd kind of like to try this. And these are the flat nose bullets. I'm talking about the different rifles. I like this 94 is fine, but myself, I'd prefer to have the longer barrel version, but you don't see many of them. And shooting cast bullets in a 30-30, I would, you run into problems. They've got a fast twist on the rifling because they're made for jacketed bullets. And then particularly in the Marlins, you're ending up with a micro groove rifling in the newer ones, so that could be a problem, though I know there are people who use cast bullets in them. But a lot of times then you end up running them real slow to make them work, and I try to get a little bit more speed out of them. Ideally, what I'd like to have would be a Marlin and a 32 Winchester Special, full rifle length, one of the older ones without the micro groove rifling. And actually, I kind of have an eye on one, but they tend to run like $1,500. That's a little steeper than I want to go. But I do prefer, a longer barrel. And if I could even get a 94, it would be fine, with a long barrel. Nothing wrong with this. This works perfectly fine. But I tend to prefer the long barrels. Partly then I use a slower burning powder, like this now, a short barrel. That's why I wanted to try this SR. But with these jacketed spear bullets, I've been using 4064. It works fine, just you get quite the fireball, but no harm in that. Just a little more efficient with a faster burning powder. But run these through. I have to kind of wait sometime. My target out there, the bottom staples came loose, so it tends to flop in the wind. So you got to kind of get her right on the right move. Yeah, they seem to be working fine. Oh. I can kind of tell because where the target is, sand flies up behind it. Yeah, check that out. But you know, that's a nice size rifle, and that 32 Special is really something worth owning. You know, I don't think anything comes chambered net anymore, but I'm quite fond of it. You know, I was originally looking at a 30-30, but then when I started looking into it more, this is what I decided to go with. I just prefer the ability to run these cast. You know, is one of the main things. And that RCBS mold is a good mold, but just awful spendy. But even just for the jacketed bullets, works quite satisfactorily. You know, and they're a flat point. But I'll go check my targets. But sometime I'm going to end up having to get a 30-30, even one of the newer with the micro groove, and just try cast bullets in it and see how it works. But if somebody is really looking to run the cast, if you have a choice, I would go with the 32 Special. I see them for sale. You know, old Winchesters tend to be a little spendy. You know, they say they'll work in the micro groove, but micro groove tends to be a little bit bigger bore. You need a little oversized bullet for them. So I would actually think twice about running them in a Marlin, except unless you get the older ones with the regular rifling. But I would be curious to see if anybody does any cast bullets in a 30-30. Like I say, I don't know anybody who does, but it makes shooting a lot cheaper. Though, you know, it depends on how much shooting you do. You know, like these spear aren't too awful bad, and they are a nice bullet. And they certainly, you know, the ones I've taken out of dead deer, they have certainly expanded nicely. You know, nothing wrong with them. I just prefer to shoot the cast if I can. Like in the 45-70, I've shot nothing but cast for a long time. Partly because I don't like switching back and forth. You know, like like last fall when I switched this one, when I loaded up some of these, well, then I have to kind of re-sight it again because they will have a different point of impact. So on a 45-70, I just run cast in it. But that is the one drawback. I like, you know, this has got that Williams peep sight on it, and I like certain aspects of it. I can get a sight picture really fast. You know, it works really good that way. But every time you change a load or change, you know, the bullet, it's going to hit in a different place. So then you have to go to the circus of readjusting her. It isn't that easily to, you know, it's a lot of fiddling. So I debate. I mean, I'm always tempted to put the regular Winchester sight on there, but I've been able to live with that. And people always use the tang-mounted ones. Now on a Winchester, you can kind of get by because the bolt doesn't come back so far, but on Marlins, that seems like it'd be right in the way. Plus, they tend to get real spendy. $100. You're always looking at 100, a little over 100. I did look at one of the flip-up sights for Winchester that is kind of a peep, works like a regular sight, and then you flip it up and it's an adjustable peep. Be kind of nice, but they were over 200, I think. Gets a little crazy on the price of sights.